Given the function f at x is equal to 1 over x and g of x is equal to the square root of 4 minus x, first let's find f minus g and then its domain. Let's recall that f minus g is shorthand for the f minus g of x function, and that is shorthand for take the f of x function and subtract the g of x function from it. So we'll take the f of x function, which is 1 over x, and from that we'll subtract the square root of 4 minus x, which is the g of x function. And that's it, because essentially this is functional notation that is representing the output of a function or the y value. So we could have written this as y is equal to 1 over x minus the square root of 4 minus x like this. And when we write this using an output variable of y instead of the functional notation, it's a little bit easier to see that what we have here is a two-variable equation, input x, output y, and this function would then have a graph with infinitely many different ordered pair solutions. The point is that we don't try to solve this for x. This is just a function written in functional notation, and the functional notation that we're using gives us information about where this function came from. We got it by taking the f function and subtracting the g function from it. Now, to find the domain of the f minus g function, this is a two-step process. We find the domain of f and the domain of g, the two functions that were used to create the f minus g function, and then we want to find where those two domains intersect, or where they overlap. So let's begin by identifying the domain of the f of x function. F of x is a rational function, and in a rational function we want to eliminate any x value that causes the denominator to be 0. So the only x value that is not allowed in the domain of f is 0. When x is equal to 0, it'll cause 0 in the denominator, and then the output would be undefined. So we'll just make a note of that domain restriction. For the domain of the g function, let's notice that g is a radical function, and in order to determine the domain of a radical function, we take the radicand and set that greater than or equal to 0. In this case, the radicand is 4 minus x, that which is underneath the radical. When we set that greater than or equal to 0 and solve for x, we'll add x to both sides here and get that 4 is greater than or equal to x, or if we reverse that, we could say that x is less than or equal to 4. So any x value that is less than or equal to 4 is going to be an allowable input for the g function, or it will cause the g function to have a real output. So now we've found the domain of f and the domain of g, which means that the next thing that we need to do is to find where they intersect. I recommend creating a concept drawing by graphing the domains and/or any restrictions on a number line. We've got a couple points of interest here. We've got something happening at the 0 and something happening at the 4. The domain of g is the set of all x values that are less than or equal to 4, so let's graph that. And the only thing that is not allowed in the domain of f is the x value 0, so we'll just chop that one out. But then we'll say that everything else is an allowable input for the f function. So long as x is not equal to 0, then the output of the f function is a real number. So the domain of f minus g is simply where these two domains overlap or intersect. So any x value in this region is an allowable input to both functions. Any x value in this region is also an allowable input to both functions, but not bigger than 4, because bigger than 4 works in f, but it doesn't work in g, so it's not going to work in the combination of f minus g. To write the domain of f minus g in interval notation, we'll say that any x value can be plugged into this function and generate a real number output if that x value is in the interval that starts from -infinity and goes up to 0. We have to leave out 0 because 0 does not work in f. So we stop and then start with 0 in the next interval, which goes from 0 to 4. We are going to include the 4 because 4 works in both f and in g, meaning that it generates real outputs for f and in g. But that's it, because x values that are bigger than 4 would cause an imaginary output in the g function. So these values out here, bigger than 4, are not part of the domain of the f minus g function. In part B here, the first thing that we're asked to do is to find the f divided by g function. Let's recall f divided by g is shorthand for f divided by g of x, which is also shorthand for take the f function and divide it by the g function. So our f function is 1 over x, and the g function is the square root of 4 minus x. Now this is the f divided by g function, but it's also what we consider to be a complex fraction, which means that it has more than 2 levels. The term complex in this case means complicated. And anytime we have a complex fraction, we always want to simplify that to being a 2-story fraction. Let's also make note of the fact that we have functional notation over here on the left-hand side of our equation. And in order to simplify this complex fraction, we're not going to do anything to both sides, because when we have functional notation on one side, we want to preserve that notation. So all of our simplification operations need to stay on the right-hand side. Let's recall what we would do if we were dividing fractions that were numbers and not variables. When we divide fractions, we basically keep the top fraction, and then we multiply by the reciprocal of the bottom fraction. In this particular case, we have a common factor of 2 that can be canceled out from the bottom here and the top there, and then when we multiply across, we'll get 2/3 as the product. So we'll do the same thing here. We have a fraction in the top, but in order to create a fraction in the bottom, we'll just drop a 1 underneath that radical. So now we can keep the numerator and then multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. We don't have any common factors that would cancel, so we're just going to multiply straight across in the numerator and multiply straight across in the denominator to get x times the square root of 4 minus x. So simplifying that complex fraction was the only thing we needed to do. Again, we have functional notation over here, which is the same thing as a y-value output. So this function would have a graph. It's not something that we solve for x. It has infinitely many ordered pair solutions that would make up the graph of this function. So now to find the domain of this function, again, let's recall that we already found the domain of f, which was that x can be anything except for 0. We already found the domain of g, which was that x has to be less than or equal to 4. Because of the fact that we're now taking f and dividing it by g, we do need to check and see whether or not there's an additional exclusion. We would also need to exclude any x value that caused the denominator function or the g of x function to be equal to 0. G of x cannot be equal to 0. So who are the x values that would cause that to happen? This is our g of x function here, and the x value that would cause g to be 0 is x is equal to 4. If x is equal to 4, we would have 4 minus 4 here, which would be 0, and that would cause the output of our radical to be 0, which would then be multiplied by something to give us 0 in the denominator. So the x value that we need to additionally exclude is 4. We cannot have x is equal to 4. As you can see a minute ago, 4 is allowed if we're just looking at the g function, but it would not be allowed if that g function were in the denominator of the fraction. So let's summarize this on a concept drawing so we can be sure we understand. We've got 2 points of interest at 0 and 4. The domain of f is everything except for 0. So we're going to go into that domain and eliminate the x value, 0. So we've graphed the domain of f. Now let's graph the domain of g, which is that the x values need to be less than or equal to 4 if we're just looking at g, but that additional exclusion said that we actually are not allowed to have 4, so we'll chop that out in order to satisfy this additional exclusion. So now that I can see everything graphed on this number line, I'm ready to go ahead and identify the domain of f divided by g in interval notation. This region of values is going to work from -infinity all the way up to 0, but we have to leave out 0 because that's a domain restriction for f. Then we pick right back up with 0, leaving it out on the other side, and this time we go up to 4 to get the interval that is in between 0 and 4. However, now we're going to exclude the value 4, which means that 4 will not be part of the domain of f divided by g.